Buenas noches y bienvenidos a esta reunión. Esta reunión será interpretada simultáneamente al español. Si usted está usando una computadora, diríjase a la barra de tareas en la parte inferior de su pantalla, abajo, y haga clic en el icono del mundito y seleccione español o Spanish. Si está usando un teléfono inteligente, diríjase a los 3 puntitos, haga clic en interpretación y clic otra vez en español o Spanish. Si gusta escuchar solamente el idioma interpretado, haga clic en silenciar el audio original, permanezca en el canal. En breve se activará la función de interpretación. Gracias.
Thanks, everyone. I'm gonna turn on interpretation now, and this is a reminder to please switch to the language channel that you find appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, make sure you switch to the right language channel. Welcome again, everyone. My name is Michaela Patton. I'm the youth co-chair along with Ayana and Mr. Charles. Super excited to be here tonight. We're gonna have some really cool presentations. And reminder, we're just here to really talk about improving health and air quality in East Oakland. So we're really gonna get into that. Also a reminder, if you have any EJ announcements, please send them to one of us so we can organize them for the end of the meeting. So you can send them in the chat or a DM or whatever's easiest. So thank you, and I'll go ahead and pass it to Ayana for objectives.
You're muted, Anna.
Okay. Oop. Is that better? Hi, CSC members. Good evening. So our meeting objectives, the CSC hears an overview of where we have been, the technical highlights and what we heard from the CSC, where we are now, community mapping presentations, and where we are going, clear next steps for strategy development. Attendees participate in an exercise that allows them to share what resonates with them and builds confidence for both the co-leads and the CSC that we are moving towards shared focus areas in strategy development. The CSC leaves the meeting confident that the co-leads have incorporated their lived experiences while grounded with technical information. And I wanted to see during the meeting objectives that we also celebrate each other and Thanksgivingness and togetherness while we make these decisions. So happy holidays. This is our holiday edition of our CSC.
And hello, everybody. This is Mr. Charles, your third co-chair. And welcome, which we already did. And so where have we been, which will be going on from community voices and technical highlights for 20 minutes. Where are we now? East Oakland community mapping results for 35 minutes, 6:30 to 7:05. And then we'll be taking a much needed break. Everybody get something to drink, come on back. And then where are we going? And the discussion and next steps will be for 35 minutes, 7:10 to 7:45. Then we'll have our EJ announcements and updates, and then our closeout next steps. So we are getting ready to get ready.
Hey y'all, thank you, Mr. Charles. This is Carly, CBE's East Oakland Clean Air Project Coordinator. Just gonna go over some meeting agreements and notes for participation. So firstly, just want to remind everyone, one mic, one voice. Please use the raised hand function under reactions at the bottom of your screen. Grace for ourselves and one another. Take care of yourself, stretch, drink water, breathe, grab a snack. And community building on Zoom, use the chat and reaction emojis to inspire and encourage one another. Communication is definitely needed. We want to hear your feedback during these meetings. And for any questions throughout the meeting, please use the Zoom chat. CBE and BACMed will be responding to your questions. Thank you.
community building. So type in the chat, put your names, pronouns, and affiliated organizations. Note, CSC members, please raise your hands if you're not able to type into the chat, and we'll have you speak out loud. So like I said, this is our holiday edition. Let's get our Thanksgiving on and Friendsgiving on. So let's go, CSC members. Happy holidays.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Alicia Xiao from the Air District's Air Quality Planning Division. I wanted to show you this slide, which shows our timeline for the East Oakland SERP and shows where we are in the plan process. We are in fall of 2023, and today we'll be providing an overview of where we've been, where we are now, and where we are going with next steps for strategy development. The information we share today will be used to guide our ongoing and iterative strategy development and the writing of the plan elements. And I will pass it to Allison and Kim to get us started.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Alicia. I'm Allison Kirk. I am with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And tonight we are going to begin by talking about the ground that the CSC has covered over the last 9 months, where we have been, essentially where we have been. Please feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions during the presentation. And we will also have time at the end of the presentation for questions. Next slide, please. This timeline shows an overview of where we have been. The light green items represent when the CSC has shared community perspectives with the co-leads. And the dark green items represent when the co-leads and our agency partners have shared technical information with the CSC. Next slide, please. This slide provides a broad overview of the community voices we have heard over the past 9 months. Over this time, the CSC has adopted a vision and principles, and the themes that we heard from these discussions include accountability, community, equity, environmental justice, flexibility, health, and transparency. And these themes are reflected in the CSC's vision and principles. During this time, the CSC also defined the East Oakland SERP community boundary. This work included a Google map exercise, and folks identified community assets and pollution sources within the community. For the CSC community profile, the CSC answered these questions. What are you most proud of in your community? And what is most helpful to know about your community? The CSC shared that its goals include working with the business community, putting people first, getting funding, and addressing multiple urgent community challenges, such as trash and air pollution. And as we will hear about in the presentation titled, Where Are We Now?, we have heard community voices throughout the community mapping project. So I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions folks have right now. And if not, we can pass it. I'll pass it to Kim Ryan.
Thanks, Allison. And hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Kim Ryan. I'm a staff researcher with CBE supporting the AB 617 strategy development work. And so we just heard from Allison some of the highlights of the landmarks throughout this process, where we've heard from community voices, your voices, as well as steering committee members. And in the next few slides, I'm going to focus on some of the highlights from the technical information that was shared with the steering committee, specifically from Alameda County Public Health Department and the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, BACMD. So thinking back to that initial slide that Allison shared, Alameda County Public Health Department back in August presented a presentation on health inequities in East Oakland. And some of the highlights from that presentation noted that East Oakland experiences effects of decades of disinvestment. Those are coming up through poverty, unemployment, and health impacts. And generally speaking, East Oakland experiences worse health impacts compared to the rest of Oakland and Alameda County. And the effects of this disinvestment and the effects of pollution, and particularly pollution from highways and industrial facilities being in close proximity to residents, has impacted community health. Specifically, that has shown up in increased asthma rates, increased asthma-related emergency visits, increased mortality rates from cancer and heart disease. Next slide, please. And so, in addition to Alameda County Public Health Department's presentation on health inequities, we also heard from BACMD in August at that same meeting about the emissions inventory. And these two are sort of tied together. So I've highlighted the emissions inventory here. And just as a reminder for ourselves, I have a couple bullets on what the purpose of the emissions inventory is. So the emissions inventory estimates the amount of air pollution coming from stationary sources, like permitted facilities that BACMD permits, and mobile sources like trains, planes, trucks, vehicles on the road and off the road that are operating within the community boundary. And the reason why the emissions inventory is valuable is because it tells us what some of the major pollutants are within the community boundary, or that are coming into that boundary, and where they're coming from. And it really provides critical information about what the pollution is. Are the sources coming from stationary sources, mobile sources? Is it the airport, the trains, specific facilities? So the emissions inventory provides really critical technical information for us. Next slide, please. And so the results of the emissions inventory, there were many. Going back to that presentation, which is linked in the third bullet of this slide, if you're interested in diving in, there's much more than what I have here. This is just a highlight. But a couple of things I wanted to highlight and just remind ourselves of is that the emissions inventory for East Oakland found that there are high levels of nitrous oxides and particulate matter, which includes, I'm including diesel particulate matter in this. And these are associated with the burning of fossil fuels. So exposure to nitrous oxides like NO2 and exposure to PM2.5, this can lead to asthma and respiratory diseases, heart diseases, premature death. And so this really ties back into what we heard from Alameda County Public Health Department about these health inequities that East Oakland residents are experiencing and have been experiencing. The emissions inventory, so it identified the pollutants, many pollutants, but the two that I'm highlighting here, NO2 and PM2.5. And then it also identified some of the sources where these are coming from. And again, there are many, but some of those that I've highlighted here included those from transportation, like the airport and trucking. It also included industrial facilities, including the Davis Street Transfer Station and Gallagher and Burke, which is an asphalt recycling facility. And it also highlighted residential fuel combustion. So the use of, for example, gas-powered hot water tanks. So I just wanted to provide this highlight to remind ourselves of the technical information that was shared. Again, if you're interested in diving back into a little bit more of the details, There's a link here on the slide to that meeting where these presentations were shared. But I also just wanted to take a moment to pause and check in to see if anyone has any questions before we hear from the community mapping team about the community mapping results. All right, I'm not hearing any or seeing any hands coming up, but if there are questions that pop into the chat, please feel welcome to flag those for me. And I'll pass it on to Anish and Dr. Charisma AC and Carly to share our presentation on where we are now.
Thank you, Kim. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anish Rana. I'm with the Bay Area Energy District's Community Engagement Office. I'm gonna, in this next presentation, we're gonna go over the community mapping project, which was launched in September, mid-September. Can we go to the next slide? So as you all know, we launched the community mapping project in mid-September. The purpose of the project was to collect information that will help us better understand air quality concerns of East Oakland community members. To support the project, Air District provided grants to local nonprofits in East Oakland to conduct outreach about the mapping project and encouraged East Oakland members to add information in the form of pins. The grant recipients are listed here on this slide here, and they're all here in attendance tonight, and they're going to share some information about their projects and a little bit about what they learned from their engagement. After this presentation, we'll pause for questions before I hand it over to the rest of the community mapping team to go over share an analysis of the data that was collected through the map. So first up, we have Susan Silber from the East Oakland Collective.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here to speak about this important project. Just to give a little bit of background about the East Oakland Collective, it was founded in 2016 to support residents of East Oakland. And it focuses on civic engagement and leadership, food distribution, economic empowerment, and housing for some of Oakland's most vulnerable populations, prioritizing Black and Brown residents and unhoused neighbors. So in addition to these numerous programs, I was hired a couple months ago to support the development of our 7,000 square foot office and warehouse space as a resilience hub. And we are now embarking on turning this one-stop shop into a one-stop shop for community needs and resources into a resilience hub. In case you don't know what that is a community serving facility that is augmented to support residents and coordinate communication, distribute resources during both climate emergencies and the day-to-day. So we've been in the stage of asking what communities want to see in this resilience hub. So it was like perfect timing that this community mapping opportunity came along. And because we wanted to do this anyway. So what we did was we were able to hire 3 part-time stipended workers who are from East Oakland to support this work, which we really appreciated. And yeah, part of what we did was really integrate this community mapping into our existing community engagement work for the Resilience Hub. So we were, for example, planning a visioning session for the Resilience Hub anyway. So we really integrated this mapping project into that particular gathering. We had 30 community members there. Communities for a Better Environment came to support and help introduce the mapping project there. We also integrated into a focus group for 25 older adults and asked them the questions from the community mapping project. And then we worked on one-on-one in-person conversations with the 200+ individuals who come to East Oakland Collective Tuesdays and Thursdays to pick up for food donations. So we ask them, questions both about this mapping project and Resilience Hub, majority Spanish speakers, families, the unhoused. And then we simply drove and walked around the neighborhoods to collect this data. I did this as well, which was like very, very eye-opening. And in terms of the responses themselves, overwhelmingly, they said there's a lot of trash and just a lot of despair about this. And I know this is not necessarily something that the Air District is like super focused on, but this is a big part of what the residents saw in their day-to-day experiences. Just the feeling also that the city just doesn't pay attention to this, doesn't care about this blight, and they don't know what to do about it. And they did notice the health challenges like asthma, but it was kind of hard to pinpoint like specific pollution and polluting businesses. And they noticed in driving around, there's a lot of cultural space. I noticed, there's a lot of cultural spaces and gathering spots that people are proud of, but these two were contaminated with trash. Some of the highlights, individuals were really grateful for this opportunity. It felt empowering, but they wanted to know what's next. What are the solutions? I'd love to see more added language specifically around climate solutions as well, and got me thinking about, a map around that. And mapping these types of sites. So again, thank you for the opportunity and for this important work, and excited to learn what comes after this.
Thank you, Susan. Next up, we have Amber Blackwell from Higher Ground Neighborhood Development Corporation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amber Blackwell. I hope everyone can see me. I am from Higher Ground Neighborhood Development Corporation. We have been in existence for the past 20 years, and we have been doing environmental justice work the entire time. We work with youth to enlighten them and build their awareness, as well as civic engagement around environmental justice issues. So we've worked with public health for the last about maybe 8 years, in which we had several students and families participate in several types of, I would say, information gathering around pollutants, around liquor stores, around tobacco, and the proliferation of just cigarette butts in the Sobrante Park neighborhood. So we've been doing this kind of work for a while in the community. And what we did to further the cause of getting more information is that we worked with our families. We specialize in dealing with youth and their families. So we worked at our after-school programs to get the input of students and their families. Our schools are within the identified area. We also attended community events so that we can kind of do both, take an inventory of the spaces that people valued and felt were cultural spaces, as well as asking them about air pollution. And one thing that I did notice, and that was a response theme, is that a lot of Oakland residents do know about emissions. They are abreast about the air pollutants that emissions cause. And I was very happy about that. So the work that has been done really over the last 20 years, kind of starting in West Oakland and just spreading all around the Bay Area around emissions, I feel, kind of work because people understood that. I just want to echo what the previous presenter said around the concerns around the trash and the environmental air pollution that homeless encampments pose. That was a surprise to me. Just as many people that did know about emissions, however, did not know about all of the various types of pollutants. So when the call to action came out for us to go a little deeper in trying to get individuals to kind of pinpoint the other pollutants, I found that people really weren't able to do that, and that more information needs to be presented in terms of educating people on all of the various forms of pollution, not just the emissions from diesel and the particulates that they let out. Some highlights that I was kind of proud of is that we employed several youth to engage in this project as a part of their civic engagement, and their awareness was also increased around what the various forms of pollution were. And by the end of the project, they were able to articulate that at several community events that we went to gather information around these particular points. Another thing, and I guess the last thing that I would like to point out, is that several Black people in the Oakland community mentioned that there's a cultural crisis, and basically longtime African-American residents within those areas are concerned about the diminishing presence of places for Black people to gather, grocery stores, banks, you know, just kind of shops that increase the sense of thriving in the community. So as I asked more people about that, lots of, you know, older Black residents that have been here long time, and they, you know, mentioned that was one of the things that they were concerned about, is that the disinvestment that is continuing to happen in East Oakland, and they feel that the trash and the pollution is a direct result of that. So with that being said, I enjoyed it. I also learned a lot, and I'll pass it on to the next presenter.
Thank you, Amber. Next up, we have Mr. Charles with Lifers Leaving a Legacy.
Thank you, Amber, for that report, because we actually got a lot of the same complaints that the previous two presenters have already offered up. And trash and illegal dumping was the main topic. And as a co-chair, I wanted to find out where does mold factor into this, because mold is an emission. So we did 3 weeks before our event, we developed our flyers and our QR code and began reaching out to people. We accumulated 30 to 40 surveys from direct outreach to schools and libraries, door knocked, left flyers in surrounding event neighborhood, collected approximately 50 signatures to our East Oakland emergency alert list. And Carly created this beautiful pamphlet along with myself. She took my ideas, put them together, and you did a great job, Carly. And we want to make sure that all of our steering committee members get those pamphlets in language they understand. Our response themes were that people are tired of East Oakland looking and smelling like a garbage dump. They felt that agency, community, and city need to genuinely work in partnership more closely to clean and protect the health of communities of concern. And our highlights were Dr. Phil Fine attended and interacted with community with other BACMed staff. We gave away 12 bikes donated by the 81st Library. We gave away pounds of food and household hygiene products donated by Miss Candy from the parole department. And we fed a total of 300 community members. We felt like that when it comes to empowerment, you got to energize people. And you can't really energize people better than feeding them and giving them free stuff. So that's what we felt like we did. And finally, we gave a disenfranchised and neglected community, which is the 85th Tasparanga area where there is a recurring illegal dump site. We gave them a reason to appreciate their environment as we made contact with between 150 to 200 survey participants over the planning and event. And I thought we was going to show the 1 and 25-second video, but I guess not.
We can do that, Mr. Charles. We have it lined up.
Thank you.
And if I am wrong, Lord,
I want to tell you why we're really here. We're really here to help bring awareness to our environment. The EJ movement is just not about the air. It's about what happens on the ground, where we live and walk and play every day. That's what environmentalism is about. That's what environmental justice is really about.
And then at the high school level, when we get a little older, we have this, which teaches you how to actually put the air monitor together.
So this book and this curriculum is how to make an air monitor.
So it's about pollution and emissions reduction and exposure reduction. So that's what the community members are, and Charles is a co-chair.
Why we gotta see garbage every day? Why we gotta breathe in that odor every day? We deserve better.
A great organization that's letting people know about pollution today, and you know what chemicals we have in the air that we don't really know, or we're just walking outside or walking our pets.
Our Defend Democracy campaign has been registering returning family members, but of course we're not limited to that. We want everyone to become a voter and help people understand what it means to be an environmental voter.
We can change an election with 5,000 new voters, people. So please listen to me and be a part of this movement, because it's gonna continue to grow.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Next up, we have Jerry McGee-Tyner from Recess Fund.
Yes, hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually have to keep my video off. I'm sorry. I'm actually got caught still driving my kid to her first her high school basketball game. So my apologies with the timing, but it is what it is, and we love our children, right? So Recess Fund. So first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this project. Recess is after school homework support, enrichment services, family resources, community service, civic engagement for our youth. So this was right on time, aligned with our mission of building community and getting resources to the community. So this project was really great. The youth, it was mainly youth led. So I had some high school students. I had a variety of, multicultural, a variety of them, and they were hired and paid stipends to participate in this great project. So to set my project off, we had informational sessions for the youth and families. So we basically were able to educate them on what this is even all about. So one great thing was the kids, it resonated because some of them said, we're studying air quality in our classroom right now and talking about this. So they couldn't wait to tell their teachers, that they're going to be a part of this, so that was really great to get those energies flowing. So I was able to do informational sessions, show videos, give them statistics on what this is even about. What are emissions and what are the chemicals or emissions that are in the air that is causing poor air quality, and most importantly, the statistics about the chronic conditions like asthma and how you might have a short life, unfortunately, because of the air emissions and quality air in East Oakland. And so we need to do something about this. So, that was kind of sobering for them to hear those statistics. And, it was like a, what can we do approach? So, I educated them on all the different types of pollution, right? There's not just air pollution, there's noise pollution, light pollution. I've learned about a lot of pollution actually. So I wanted to educate them because not just on, what this project was about, but just what is environmental justice, right? And so it was great for them to be a part of those sessions. We reached about 200 survey participants. We had events. I did a tabling outside of recess, a few of them, just white people walking down the street, coming out the barbershop, coming out the grocery store, like, hey, can I have a minute of your time to talk about air pollution? And I realized that $5 gift cards wasn't gonna get it though. some of them, I had to up it a little bit. So I had to up it to 10. It was worth them stopping for 10. 5, it was like, but anyway, that's just a joke. But it was kind of true though. I had to up the gift card incentive. So we did incentives. We actually did a raffles for those who participated. We had a raffle that we would hold to where they can get a gift card. Also, I did the Art and Soul Festival, so I knew I was going to catch some people there. And so the Art and Soul Festival was great for those who lived in East Oakland, and they were able to stop at our table and talk about it. And, you know, what was surprising is that people really had a lot to say. Like when I said, how do you feel about the air pollution and air quality in East Oakland? Oh, well, let me tell you, you know, and especially our elders, you know, they talked about their health conditions, their chronic, you know, asthma, breathing problems, but mostly like the others, they did talk about the trash, right? That was the main thing. But I was able to educate them that there are other things, you know, to bring to their attention. Most of them identified the cars that go up and down International Boulevard and all the smog issues and factories and yes, even though they love to eat barbecue, they know that all the smoke that's on every corner, it seems like there's a barbecue pit or somebody cooking something, and you know they want to support their community, right, with eating these, but it is contributing to the air quality, right, when you have all of that going on, plus all the auto body shops, and then you have the 880 freeway and the airport, and I mean, it was just a host of items that they were able to identify how this is, and these are issues, right? These are contributing. So let's see. The participants were mainly concerned about, well, what's going to be done, you know, about this. And, you know, it was like, well, this is a start. Right? This is where we can voice your concern, and there is somebody who's going to address these, and we will get information back to you. But what I observed too is that there is lack of information in the communities about what they're breathing in. You know, why not put pamphlets in grocery stores or laundromats or barbershops or nail shops or where people gather, right? So that they can understand that this is a problem. Like if you smell this bad odor, or if you know, are having this issue with a chemical or emissions, here's a number you can call. You know, this is the gas, or this is the nitrous oxide, or whatever these what the scientific names of all of these, right? They need to know what they're breathing in. They need to know when an airplane goes over their home that it might be some emissions, or it is rather, that's coming down upon them, that's contributing to the air that they're breathing, right? Besides the fact that, yeah, airplane, that means somebody's going somewhere and somebody's coming back, but it also means that East Oakland is impacted, right? Especially if they're going to expand the airport, but that's a whole nother story. So to wrap up, the survey participants, they got an opportunity to voice their concerns. They were very happy to participate. It brought community. They felt it brought community. I did a debrief with them after the project, and I sat with them and I said, how did this make you feel? And they were like, we like being able to talk to our community members, our friends at school, our teachers, our parents, our families. We like the opportunity that this provided them to talk, you know, and be empowered to tell them what's going on and why we're doing this. And so that was great. Let's see, participants would like a follow-up, like I said, and we took lots of pictures. We drove around East Oakland, so I have a phone full of pictures, and I was uploading as many as I could. But, you know, just to tell the true story, I think pictures, you know, tell a good story, what they're experiencing. So it was a great opportunity. I also will say that some people were like, well, can you do anything about these potholes? I was like, I agree with that. You know, maybe that's another committee I need to join, because that's tearing people's cars up. You know, they trying to get to work, and then their car tires are being impacted by potholes. So anyway, I just appreciated the opportunity. And yeah, we're empowered over at Recess. We're having fun learning, and this was great for us. So thank you. And I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Jerry. And thank you again to all of our grantees for all the wonderful work you did, you know, out in the community, engaging with the community members, and helping to collect this information that'll be really useful and helpful as we progress into this process. I do want to take a pause right now and see if there are any questions before I hand it over to the rest of the team that to share the analysis of the data that was collected. I see a hand from Carol Core.
Hi, good evening. I was just wondering if after we get these results, will there be further opportunities to add to the map?
The map is closed at this point, but I think if there are things if there's information that you want to pins that you want to add, I think go ahead, feel free to send that to us, or you can send that to me, and we can include it in the information that we did collect in the data.
Okay, great, thanks.
Next up, I see a hand from Marina.
Marina?
Sí, iba a ser casi el mismo.
Yes, it was almost going to be the same comment that, so regarding vaping, I would have liked to have a little bit more of space because over the mapping, excuse me, because there were a lot of people that did not understand via internet. We don't know how to use the computer. I'm referring to myself, and to be able to insert those points in the mapping, I would have liked that if you would have given us a map, a large map, go to the communities outside of the schools. So
identificaran aquellos que no sepan la tecnología, porque muchos se quedaron afuera por no saber, ¿sí? Aunque les mandé yo la aplicación, muchos no pudieron hacerlo. Sí, era demasiado ya tarde también cuando empezamos a hacer que me empezaron a mandar los mensajitos, entonces hubo unas personas que se quedaron también sin mandar los mensajes porque no sabían que era muy rápido. Sí, entonces sí me hubiera gustado, me gustaría agregar, ¿verdad? Voy a pedir más información, agregar, ¿verdad? Y tener como un poquito más tiempo, como que se me hizo muy carrereado, ¿verdad? No sé, nos faltó como más, estar como más presentes en las escuelas, ¿sí? Con nuestro mapa, para que ellos llenaran los puntos que ellos vieran, ¿verdad? Que están contaminados. Como que faltó mucha educación para hacer todo esto. Gracias.
I'm so sorry, Marina, to interrupt you, but I don't know if this is happening for everybody else, but I'm not hearing the interpretation anymore.
Yeah, I think our interpreter got exited accidentally, and she's just joining back. Just give us a second to resolve that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Marina. I didn't hear.
Can I share part of what she said in English?
Go ahead.
That it wasn't very accessible for people, especially the computer. That, you know, maybe next time making it just a paper map would have been, which I found that too as well, and reaching to some of the more unhoused resident, etc. And yeah, that was a big concern, and more time as well. It was really rough, just giving us a month, and so that was a concern as well.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. We definitely heard that during the process, and it was something that we, lesson learned. We did attempt to extend the time period for entering information, and we did reach out to CSC members and allowed them to submit information in writing that was then added to the map later. So, but yeah, thank you for the feedback. It's definitely something that we'll take into consideration next time if we deploy this again. Are there any, oh, okay, Miss Cecilia? Or did you, oh yeah. Miss Cecilia?
I just wanted to make a statement about the illegal dumping. It's not just the Oaklanders that are doing that. It's people that's coming from various cities that's bringing that trash here to Oakland. So there needs to be the city councilmen, they really need to try to do something about that. Because it's just terrible. It's all it's doing is making our city look like nothing but trash. And we're gonna have to do something about that. And that's why we have the council members for, to help to keep Oakland clean and beautiful. So we're gonna have to figure a way to meet with the council members and see about getting something done about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Cecilia. And in order to keep us on time for the agenda, I am going to hand this over to my team member, Charisma AC, who's going to share an analysis of the data that was collected through the map.
Thank you, Anish. And yeah, those were great comments and great presentations. So much love in the chat. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here. I'm Charisma AC, Professor of City and Regional Planning at Berkeley and part of the Just Cities team. And the next set of slides present a summary analysis of the wonderful community mapping effort by the grantees who just presented. 453 pins were received by community members, which is amazing. And there were 3 categories of information that residents could add to the map. Air pollution concerns, which were the vast majority of pins, over 80% or 394. And example comments included concerns about the 880 freeway, commercial industrial activity, burning of cars, trash, smoke, noxious odors, and other concerns like we've just been talking about. The other category was locations where people gather, especially seniors, young people, or community members with increased health risks. So that was about 9% or 45 pins. And here people pointed out schools, daycare centers, recreation spaces, parks like San Antonio Park, Wilkins, Elmhurst, Tasafaranga, community gardens like Freedom Farm. And comments identified a number of issues such as the presence of polluters, illegal dumping, and trash, abandoned cars, but also activities that take place in these spaces like community picnics and birthday parties. Oh, sorry, I think I see some, is that Miss Cecilia has a hand up? Did I pause?
No, I don't have my hand up. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Mm-hmm.
And the third category was community strengths and resources. So these are locations that represent creativity, culture, heritage, and strength in the community. And so this was about 11% of the pins, so about 54. Some of these overlap with places where people gather, but additional areas were identified where children's activities are held, community days, shelters, places like Allen Temple Arms Senior Housing, East Oakland Youth Development Center, Socorro-Reyate, their rematriated land, and Acton Verba Community Farm, and other important spaces to protect. We can go to the next slide. So the next slide shows you a summary of geography of where most of the pins were located. On the left is the live East Oakland community map on the Air District site, where you can see the community placed pins in relation to other important locations that were identified before the community mapping. So places like childcare centers, clinics, senior centers, hospitals, and permitted stationary sources. And I think the map on the left really shows the value of the community mapping process, because so many more locations were identified by residents than were known by public agencies. On the right is a heat map of the air pollution concerns. So the map shows the intensity of where those air pollution concerns are located. The redder where you see on the map, that means there were more air pollution pins placed by the community in those areas. And as we'll see on the next set of maps, those areas in red include many pins along International Boulevard as it moves from San Antonio through the Fruitvale and onto deep East Oakland. And I'll just pause to see if there's any questions before we go on to the next map.
Charisma, I think Mr. Charles has his hand up.
Okay, Mr. Charles.
It was in reference to Miss Cecilia's comment about Oakland becoming a dumping ground and it not being just Oaklanders. And one of the things that we wanted to stress is that we, around recurring dump sites, we would love to see cameras in those areas so that you can begin to ticket people afterwards for cleaning up those areas. If we can't catch people, then we can't keep things clean. And so I would hope that in the future, our BACMed staff here with the CERT would bring the city of Oakland here to our meetings, will bring waste management to our meetings so that we can begin to develop some kind of partnership strategy to keep our city clean. Because right now, Oakland is just too ugly. And it's up to us to come up with solutions to that. And I was just wanted to let Miss Cecilia know that as co-chairs, this is one of our primary concerns because it's one of our community's primary concerns. So we will be fighting.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
Were there any other questions?
Charisma, Carol has her hand up, and then Gabrielle.
Okay, Carol.
Hold on. Hi. It wouldn't unmute for some reason. Just quick question on the map. I see you've got the green and pink and brown, but then there are a bunch of smaller like gray dots and others. I'm just kind of wondering what those or how they related.
Yeah, so the green and pink and brown, those correspond to the categories that the community's members place, the air pollution concerns, locations where people gather, and community strengths and resources. And then those others, if you go to the live map, you'll see a legend, but those others are the places like the daycare centers, the permitted stationary sources, and other locations that were known to the air district before the process started.
Okay,
so the community added a lot more locations than were known before the process started.
Thanks.
Great question. Gabrielle?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm wondering if there are any potential gaps. I can't see the heat map now because it looks like it's not being shared anymore. But I was just thinking about how the points that were added were kind of centralized, and I think that's probably pretty accurate. But I am wondering if there is any risk of gaps, just based on like whether did we allocate enough time and resources to adding those additional pins to the inventory? Are we sure that we, are there any areas of concern that you think might not have been covered? And you might be able to even look at the existing station, the existing inventory or existing data about where the pollution is, and maybe I don't actually know, like I'm just looking at the heat map again, and there's like that kind of green area between like Fruitvale and I can't even and like how it kind of thins out again. Like that's just an example somewhere. I wonder if there's any I know that we have to we have to move forward one way or the other, but I'm just wondering if there was any thought of, or concern about that and making sure that we have covered everything. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great, Gabrielle. And yeah, these are the pins that were placed as part of this community mapping effort, but good concerns have been raised about, I think in the chat, about, was mapping done in certain neighborhoods and people who may not have been able to access the mapping. So definitely there are gaps in terms of our knowledge of the community's concerns. But I think at the end of my presentation, I'm going to turn over to Carly to talk about how this mapping process fits into the larger data gathering that is part of this process. So there's other data that is being gathered as part of this, and Carly and CBE will speak to that. But that's a great question and a point to keep in mind as the steering committee moves forward. I think we can go to the next slide. So I want to give a huge thanks to Kim Ryan at CBE and Air District staff, Deanna Perez-Domansich and Carissa White, as well as my Just Cities colleague, Mausam Jamal, for the next set of slides. It was a team effort to do the additional mapping with the community pins that were collected and to analyze the comments received in time for tonight's meeting. So on this map, the link, unfortunately, in the PDF is not live, but that will be corrected. But there's a link to this, and this is actually an interactive map where you can zoom in and see the community placed pins for air pollution gathering spots and strengthened resources in relation to different equity geographies that are important for funding and agency decision-making at the local, regional, and state level in California. So the colored areas of this map represent CalEnviroScreen scores, which is the state's environmental justice screening tool that combines 21 indicators of pollution burden and population characteristics and assigns every census tract in a state a score. And so on this map, the darker blue the area, the more environmental and social vulnerability and elevated health problems. And you can see the pins are clustered in darker blue areas, especially along International Boulevard. And if once you're able to get to the, I think a link to the interactive map was placed in the chat, you can turn on and off layers to see the overall score or individual indicators like PM 2.5, diesel, cardiovascular disease, asthma, and housing burden as well in relation to where the community pins were placed. We can go to the next slide. This slide is an overlay. Let's go back one slide. So this slide is an overlay of the community pins with the other two categories, locations where people gather and community strengths, and laying them over OCDOT's priority neighborhoods framework. So this is another kind of equity geography. So here, darker areas represent a combination of where you'd find more people of color, more low-income households, people with disability, seniors 65 and older, single parent families, severely rent burdened households, and low educational attainment areas with less than a bachelor's degree, which has been found to be correlated with cardiovascular mortality in the US. So there's another kind of equity geography. Yes, this is the same. So I see a question in the chat from Gabrielle, which is this the same interactive map? And yes, it is. So you could turn on and off the layers with the different pins. You could just see the air pollution pins or just see the community strength pins. You could see the CalEnviroScreen as a total score or just the individual indicators, or you can see the OCDOT. So you can play with it a little bit and zoom in. Maybe I should pause here and see if there's any additional questions. Let's see if there's anything in the chat. Cool settings for the map. Marina? Okay. All right, I'll keep going because I know we're short on time. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so we want to go into more depth on the emerging themes from those three categories of pins mapped by community members. So if you remember, each pin is associated with a comment and a survey. Given that the majority of pins were linked to air pollution concerns, it's not surprising that the majority of pins had a negative sentiment, the red that you see on the pie chart on the left. On the right is a word cloud, and a word cloud is generated by a computer. So what we did was put in all the comments and survey responses, and the program generates a cloud based on how often specific words are mentioned. The more times a word is mentioned, then the bigger the font, and the less times the smaller. So kind of on what we've been talking about tonight, the biggest words you can see are words like illegal, dumping, bad, smell, trash, health, air, and then slightly smaller, but still, you can see their prevalent themes: community, pollution, and emissions. And then smaller words are less frequent, but the concerns are there in the data and among the community. And so smaller words in this cloud include environment, smoke, asthma, dirty, odor, cars, safety, freeway, and auto. And we're going to delve into these a little bit more and pull out some key quotes. So we can go to the next slide. So the next thing we did was to manually code the comments and survey responses to identify emerging themes from each category of PIN placed by the community. And as a reminder, if you go to the live community map on the Air District site, you can see these quotes by clicking on each brown, pink, or green pin, and then the comment will pop up. So you can see under air pollution, emerging themes include climate impacts, commercial industrial activity, and stationary mobile and other emission sources. And these include sources like traffic, trucks. There was concerns about fire, both from wildfire and burning, also from auto shops. And just to highlight some of the quotes in terms of commercial and industrial impacts, you see here one person wrote, "I'm impacted because there are a lot of auto shops and the emissions from cars that release gases and other particles in the air that cause health problems." Another person has a quote around mobile emission sources. "I always see big trucks and diesel trucks at this stop sign. Sometimes there are multiple at once and they'll be stuck there longer, emitting pollution right next to homes." So this quote is linked to a PIN and a location that can be followed up on. We can go to the next slide, which has more pollution concerns, because this was the most prevalent theme. And so enforcement and illegal dumping were major themes, as Mr. Charles mentioned, and maybe the need for cameras and to have the city here. There were also concerns of people expressed the uncertainty about the impacts of various industrial and commercial activities located near where they live. Environmental justice and racism, pollution, health, infrastructure, land use, zoning, and waste management were all themes. Some quotes that we thought were particularly relevant to highlight included enforcement. So the quote here where it says, "The smell, chronic intermittent chemical odor similar to a tannery reported to BACMed since 2018 is toxic, and the fact that it's been ongoing and not identified or solved for so long is disturbing." And under waste management, pollution from debris and illegal dumping, this is terrible, all down this Alameda Avenue and East 8th Street. So very, very specific. On the last two slides, we're gonna highlight some of the quotes from community strengths and also locations where people gather. So under strengths and resources, which is the next slide, sorry. Numerous sites were identified, from schools with farms, the East Oakland Youth Development Center, shelters, but problems were also identified, such as a dump site adjacent to Sobrante Park. And you can see on the slides quotes related to that theme. And then on the next slide, we pulled out some quotes on locations where people gather, especially seniors, youth, and people with health problems. So here, places identified included parks, farms, other green spaces, but additional issues were identified with those places, including the presence of trash, car burning, and public safety. One particular quote that stood out was about Tyrone Kearney Park. And the quote says, "It is a potential green space that has been closed for years due to dangerous nighttime activities. How can we reimagine this space to be a positive community asset to Sobrante Park?" So that's the summary, the initial summary analysis of our presentation. There's more that can be delved into in these comments. It was a huge effort in 5 days to pull this out, but I think there's a lot more to explore for the steering committee. And I'll pause for questions, and if there aren't any questions, I'll turn it over to Carly from CBE, who's going to connect the community mapping effort with the larger SERP process. So thank you all. Cynthia.
Yes. Hi, good evening. I'm so sorry if you said this in the beginning. I was with my 2-year-old at that time, but
No worries.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out where exactly the survey was done. And I only ask because I live in Arroyo Viejo and we like never get anyone in my neighborhood. I mean, every once in a while when it's election time, people pop up. So I was just curious because I didn't hear about this at all in my area.
Yeah, I don't know if Anish wants to speak to this, but this was the pins were collected as part of a community mapping effort, and so there was a grant process where
Right. No, I'm familiar with that, but these quotes
okay.
and all the survey stuff you've gone, like who was surveyed, like, or where?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Anisha's gone for the evening,
Oh.
but I wonder, Charisma, if we should reshare slide 22, because then that's like all the pins, right, in the whole area.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think
right?
it's yeah, that's from all
So are you implying that whoever put a pin was then offered a survey? I'm just not quite understanding the connection between the survey and the pins.
Yeah, so each
Okay.
pin that can be placed on the map, you initially make a comment associated with your pin.
Got it.
And
Got
then
it.
there
Okay.
was an option to do an additional survey that asks more
Okay.
questions.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
a lot more sense. Thank you. I was kind of confused on why the pins kept getting brought up in relation to the survey. Thank you.
Oh, got you. Yeah. Great question. Thanks, Cynthia. Sorry for the confusion. I
And
see
I don't
Marina.
know if
Are there other questions? Oh,
I was
Ms.
just gonna
Marina?
say,
Oh, go ahead.
someone mentioned, Carly, that if the grantees want to say anything about where if Arroyo Viejo was if people had boots on the ground in that neighborhood or the areas that they served, please feel free to jump in. And then Christmas, I do see Marina's hand.
Sí, yo solo quería comentar.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment. I made a comment and I also mentioned that behind the Plantigiasti under the freeway, how are we going to monitor this part? Because we don't have exactly the street that it's in. We only identify it because of the train tracks and because it's underneath the freeway 880. But I don't know if it's included there or how they're going to work that area. That's my question. Thank you.
I know, thank you for the question. I know Anish is not on the call anymore, but it sounded like he was gonna, Anna, if that was correct, he's gonna collect more points of steering committee members have more locations of concern to add to the map that can be done.
Yeah, I think I was chatting with Carly that maybe Carly could work with you, Marina, to get those pins that haven't been added yet, and we can collect those and enter them manually in like the final analysis of the results. So, and Mawsum put a reminder to fill out your reimbursement forms for the time that you spend collecting locations. So thank you, Marina. We're running a little bit behind. I wonder, Charles, Mr. Charles, we could take your comment or question really quickly and then pass it to Carly if yours could be the last hand we take. And then we'll transition to Carly and take our break.
Thank you, Anna. And all I wanted to do was support the concerns that I've heard from our community members and saying that we want to bring our city council members to our meetings from now on in East Oakland. They need to be here. There need to be a representative from each council member in East Oakland in these meetings. And how can our concerns be expressed if they're not here to listen to them? And so I think we really need to do a little bit more outreach to our partner agencies and stakeholders so that they're sitting in the room with us so that they can hear our community's complaints for themselves instead of us having to bring it to them. And so hopefully in the future, we'll have more city council staff here and more staff from the city of Oakland to hear our particular issues, because this is the forum that we should have to voice those opinions to them, and they should be in this room with us.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you, Mr. Charles. I'm going to turn it over to Carly, who's going to link what we just saw about the community mapping to the larger CERP process. Thank you all for the great discussion and comments.
Hi all. Thank you all for your thoughts and comments and questions. I'm just gonna shift over, how the community mapping project contributes to the CERP. So results from the community mapping project will be combined with information gathered from the facility focus list. And the facility focus list is basically a list of concerns or campaigns that CBE has worked on. So Kim has worked on this for us. And yeah, as well as CSD meetings will develop the themes or quote unquote focus areas for strategy development and the CERP's planning goals. Also, information from the comments for the mapping tool will be used to guide strategy and CERP chapter writing to ensure that strategies address community lived experiences. I also wanted to shift really quick to show a pamphlet that I made for outreach, but I do know that we have that time is, oh, okay, well, thank you, Carissa. This is the pamphlet that I made for outreach when I outreached with Charles and also in other spots of East Oakland. So basically I made this pamphlet prior and Charles wanted me to add what is the environmental justice movement. So I added that on there. I made this in English and Spanish. And yeah, if you could just scroll to the next page, please, Carissa. And basically I explained, what the environmental justice movement was, gave a definition of that. I'll also put it in the chat. And then basically had a QR code here for the mapping tool, instructions on how to do it, as well as, a demo of having another QR code on the second page, which shows a Zoom link for a CBE community meeting that I also did a demo for the mapping tool on in case people wanted to come to it. And yeah, that was basically my pamphlet. So I will put that in the chat. Thank you, Carissa. And I think now it seems like it's a good time for break. If there are any questions first.
Thanks, Carly. Let's take a 2-minute break and be back around 7:18 or so. Thank you so much, folks, for your time and attention.
Time is truly wasted. There's no guarantee. Smile isn't a making. We gotta fight the powers that be. Got so many voices saying all the same. Giving up all around me. Faces full of pain.
All right. Can we bring up the screen again, Carissa? Awesome, thank you. So next up, we have Allison and Kim on the Where We're Going section.
Thank you. Welcome back from the break. We've covered a lot of information tonight, and now we'd like to hear from you. Specifically, we want to hear your thoughts about the East Oakland Community Mapping results and project. So each will break into 3 groups. Each co-chair will facilitate 1 room. And during the discussion, BACMed and CBE staff will take notes directly into a Jamboard. If you want, you can also put your comments directly into the Jamboard yourself. And the other thing to note is that co-chairs will ask for volunteers. We'll need 1 volunteer from each group to provide a very short report back on the discussion when we come back into the main room. On the next slide, we'll see the 3 questions that the breakout groups will discuss. The questions are, what did you learn from the community mapping presentation? In thinking about the themes that were presented, what themes resonate with you? And what are important community issues that are not represented by the themes? Are there any questions about the breakout discussion? Okay, if not, we can break into our groups and we'll see everybody when we get back here. Thanks so much.
So Allison, is this our breakout room right here?
This is.
So how many people we have here? I see Andrea here. I see Susan, Marina. So I guess I am the facilitator for this part of our meeting. And so did everyone get a chance to see the themes that we had? The 3 questions that we had?
Could you post those questions again in the chat, please?
Thank you.
I can do that.
And so if everyone would take the time to look at those questions once again, I would really love to hear from our steering committee what they think. Okay. So they posted already, Allison?
Yes, they're in the chat. We can also share the Jamboard. I'll share the link.
Yeah. Would it be good for people if we posted maybe if we screen share the Jamboard?
I think that'd be good, Carly.
I don't mind screen sharing.
Great.
All right, so we see our first question, which is in Espanol. What did you learn from the community mapping presentation? And then we have it in Spanish. So I would like to ask Andrea, what did you learn from the community mapping presentation?
When the different groups presented back about their information gathering, all of them spoke to the community not being aware of certain issues and not being able to pinpoint specific locations. You mentioned that the community wasn't aware of our of the CERT. So I think that that's one thing that stood out to me, that there's still a lot of communication that we have to do in our community to make sure that people are behind us when we make our recommendations and want to take action.
Thank you so much for that input. And I do agree with you that right now, people are really not educated enough on the different pollutant factors that has to do with our health conditions. And so I'm hoping that we can do more for our outreach and community awareness in education and educating our community. Susan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, we did a lot of outreach for people that were just like very much vulnerable populations, the unhoused, people that were you know, part of our food distribution. And I just was noting that this wasn't really at the forefront of what they were thinking about in the day-to-day. And that, but when they did get asked, they're like, oh yeah, that's right. You know, I do see the asthma, the air pollution and whatnot. And just, you know, kind of thinking about, you know, you know, oh, how do we break out of our silos to think about not just air pollution, but also like, you know, people's basic needs, if you know, if that makes sense, like thinking about resilience in general. Yeah, just noting that it's not necessarily people think about all the time is air pollution, of thinking about like how they can survive, you know, at least for these populations.
I fully agree with you, Susan, because one of the things about people in poverty is that they're concerned with survival from day to day. And they're not really thinking about the air they're breathing as being the key to survival at that time. They're talking about how they're gonna eat, where they're gonna live, and how they're gonna pay their bills. And so that is one of the overriding things, is that we're just not aware of all the other stuff that's killing us. And you know, that is our responsibility as a committee tasked with helping to educate and make our communities more aware of what we're facing. And so I really appreciate you guys' input. I didn't see nobody else's hand up, so I'm gonna call on somebody, because I know Marina has something to say about this, because she's always out in the community. So Marina, what have you learned about that first question?
Pues, ¿verdad? Sobre la presentación.
Regarding the presentation, is that correct?
Yes.
What I realized that the community, and especially youth, they do not have any information, education regarding the air that we breathe. And that is a great concern. We need to do more outreach, because if you realize, or they realize, I say it because of my experience with my allergies that I suffer, that's because I started participating and starting looking at what it is that damages or harms our health. Kind of like the one lady said, usually we're focused in trying to survive, having food, shelter, but we don't go deeper, that it is that's an area that the air quality is an area that should concern us, because that affects the health too, right? Therefore, all of this data, all of this information you shared And these comments, suggestions we are giving, we definitely need to do more outreach because people are living in ignorance in our community. And because of that, we can't do more than what we are currently doing. We got to do education at the schools because young people can help us, right? They can help us convince our communities and clean up our communities. Thank you.
Appreciate all of that beautiful feedback. And if there is another hand or comment that wants to be made before we move on to the next question, what about you, Susan? Other Susan Goolsby. All right, let's move on to our next question. Number 2. In thinking about the themes that were presented, what themes resonate with you? Susan? Whichever one, click in first.
I think having the community members environmentally educated would help a lot in getting things done, because then they're more aware of pollution, of businesses that cause pollution, and maybe go to the city council meetings and speak up to make the city aware and maybe be able to do something. I don't know.
Don't get frustrated, Susan. We here to win, not to lose. We gonna win.
Okay.
No, I appreciated hearing what you said, because you supported what I think I'm hearing is that everybody is working in silos, and we need the people here at the table with us so that we can discuss solutions instead of us trying to come up with solutions and then reach out to them.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So it's like partnership in the creation of solutions.
Yep.
I was gonna say second Susan, but I say other Susan.
Okay, thank you. So I really appreciated the mini grants that were distributed, and it was a very easy process. I think that presenting just the issues can present a problem when you don't also present the solution. So how about more mini grants for solutions? You know, hand out those $5,000 to $10,000 grants for those easy air pollution type and environmental solutions, like planting trees, like community cleanups. When you empower people with some funding, they are going to get to work. So I just want to inspire us, and I've been actually working on this idea of a fund to that pools public and private dollars, just really make it easy for people to have mini grants for environmental solutions when you present those problems.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Susan, you saying that right now we just seen this thing about disinvestment and poverty, right? So now we're talking about reinvestment into the community, right? To actually employ us to do that stuff, to teach us, to train us, so that there's living community members in the neighborhood that understand this stuff.
That's right.
Okay.
There are so many community groups, so many community members that if you provided even more of these mini grants, they and the tools and the training, they would get to work. I've seen it time and time again. So we need more of this, and not just focusing on the issues, but the solutions.
Thank you so much. I love this discussion. Getting a chance to hear community members speak for themselves. Ms. Cecilia, you have your hand up. Miss Cecilia? Hit that mute button.
Yeah, okay. All
There
right,
you
I'm off now. I just wanted to say, we need to get the media involved because they need to really know what's happening here in Deep East Oakland with this emission and pollution that's going on. Because all this stuff is affecting our health, and especially for our babies and also the seniors. So we're gonna have to get the word out. And the only way to get that done, we have to go through the media and let them know what's going on here in East Oakland. Because a lot of them not even aware of this pollution and emission that's going on here.
Thank you, Miss Cecilia. And I completely agree with you that we should have media, some form of media at our meetings. Somebody from the city should be at our meetings so that when these issues are brought up, that they're taken there immediately. And that's something that we're gonna have to work on. And it all goes together with creating legitimate shared power within the leads and the people that's really pushing this. Because if we don't have shared leadership, then nothing is gonna work. And I believe we had, Andrea, you had your hand up?
Hi, yeah, just a quick theme that I heard was about the trash that's coming up. And I think that that could be a good rallying point for people in East Oakland just because the trash is so visible. And I think that it does bring the overall morale down. And I think it's really easy for people to rally around that issue. We should kind of meet people where they're at. If that's their understanding of environmental justice, is use that as a starting point so that we can have the discussions about the air pollution. But could figure out, if there's a way that we could use that theme to sort of help us in our cause for raising awareness and reducing emissions.
So you said creating a rally point.
Yeah, and a common one, which is the trash. I think everybody would agree that that's been a big problem in East Oakland.
And when you say that, and I'm listening to what Miss Cecilia said, I'm gonna say this, that when it comes to trash and everything else, that's a quality of life issue. Because Piedmont people don't have to live with trash all in their neighborhood. When they walk out their houses and they walk down the streets, they don't see that. So their quality of life and their frame of mind is different. Our frame of mind is, don't nobody give a dang about us, don't nobody care about us, so why should I care? And that's not what we want. And so we got to really work on creating those shared goals.
Mr. Charles,
Yes.
sorry, I just wanted to point out, we only have, I think we have 4 more minutes. And I think, yeah, if we want
Yeah, we can move right here, right now, Allison. Thank you. So now our third question is, what are important community issues that are not represented by the themes? So that would be like agencies working in silos. Because when you work in silos, you can't get anything done. And I believe that's one of the major community issues that wasn't brought up, is the fact that there is no true partnership or collaboration between agencies that would help our situation. We're not all sitting at the table together. We're not all discussing the pain of people together. And so that issue alone is something that doesn't allow agency to understand the urgency of what we're talking about. And so do I have a hand up? Who want to give me these another one on what's missing?
I think
I'll just say,
sorry.
the project, I think people weren't that aware. They don't know about all the agencies that are not in compliance, fully, because they just don't have that information. So just going back to the environmental toxic tour, you know, the people don't know about some of these institutions, so they don't know to bring that up as a theme and as a problem. But I think those are important things to keep in mind.
Who just said that?
Andrea.
Andrea, I really appreciate the way you just stated all of that. Would you mind giving our report back?
I don't have the notes, so I don't know if I'll be able to read everything. But just because it looks small on my device,
Andrea, excuse me, that the report back, because we have limited time, I was going to ask folks for one word that they felt like reflected the discussion.
Oh yeah, okay, I could do that. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Thank you so much. And Marina, you have your hand raised.
Sí, quería decir algo
Yes,
sobre.
I just wanted to say something about question 2, something really quick, that that question is very important because we do need to have the financing to be able to involve more members of our communities so we can do a better job and do more work in different areas in schools with the young people. And that would take us to have more power and to continue growing. And I would also like to have coalitions with other organizations so they can support us in the work that we're doing. That's the environment. And I would love that. I would love to include that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. And I think we should be close to that time when it's time to leave. But a couple of things I saw that really stood out was that there is too many silos, a lack of true collaboration between agency, city, and community, and that some of the themes are things that BACMED actually says they have no responsibility for, but let's bring these people to the table who are responsible then. And I think that's something that we could probably all agree on, is that we want these same people at the table. Am I right about that?
Definitely so.
Yes.
Okay, so now, Andrea, you could use whatever words you want to describe all this with, but I hope you say that it was informative, insightful, and we got somewhere.
It was definitely informative.
I think most of the participants will be back in around 10 seconds or so.
Okay, cool.
We need solutions.
Yes, we do.
Welcome back, everyone. Go ahead, Allison.
Welcome back. We are running just a little bit late, so I was hoping that each group has one person who would be willing to share one word that reflects for them what they heard during the conversation. So maybe it's one theme or a feeling, what you've got out of the conversation. So I'm gonna pass to Andrea, who is our spokesperson for the main room. Thank you.
Our theme was true and balanced stakeholder collaboration.
True and balanced stakeholder correction. Sorry.
I think she said collaboration.
Collaboration, thank you. Room 2.
Yes, I think that was us. Our themes were community change making and advocacy.
Fantastic. Room 3.
Ayana, do you want to do that report back?
Sure, absolutely. I don't have access to the actual Jamboard, so I can't really see. But our main themes were basically surrounded by community based, but I don't see the Jam. Anna, you want to do it for me? Because I can't see.
Oh, sure. That's a lot of pressure, but
sorry.
I think one powerful conversation the members had was around taking community knowledge and turning it into action and results at the city level. It was powerful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I will now pass to Kim. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Allison, and thanks everybody for participating in the breakout groups. I wonder if, Carissa, if you're still screen sharing, if you could pull the slides back up to wrap up the where are we going part of this presentation. Thanks, got it. Moving along with this question of where are we going and sort of starting to build out that plan. This slide highlights some of the major landmarks that are ahead in order for us to move into strategy development and really get make that component of the CERT process. And I'll start here by just kind of reminding us. So we heard from the community mapping team today about some of the big themes that came out of the mapping project. Illegal dumping was a big one that was on there. Traffic, truck traffic and transportation we heard about, and many other themes. And then in our breakout sessions, we also heard from you as a steering committee members about some themes that resonated most with you, and also very importantly, where there may be some community concerns or places of value that were not represented in the map. And so what we're going to be planning to do next is take the information that we gathered through the community mapping and try to identify, first of all, we'll combine it with all of the other information that we've been gathering over the past year, including the facility focus list, as Carly mentioned, and gathering information, technical information that we've heard from Alameda County Public Health Department and the emissions inventory from BACMed, and joining all of that in order to try to identify some of the major overarching themes or focus areas that represent what we're hearing about community concerns. And the goal is to have the co-leads will work on this between now and December, and then come back to you, the steering committee, and share out what all the major themes are that we are identifying, and then go to you to hear what maybe there's 5 or 6 themes that we can really focus on for strategy development. Maybe there's 6 or 7. So the goal there is to take the themes that we're gathering with all of this information and organize them so that we can now focus ourselves on developing strategies. And then once we identify those focus areas and the steering committee has selected which ones they'd be interested in pursuing, we can start pulling together strategies, the draft strategies. So this might look like, us colleagues gathering existing strategies from other planning documents, other AB 617 SERPs. Definitely would involve reaching out to different agencies and collaborating and bringing them to the space in order to, and what am I trying to say? In order to incorporate all of the feedback that we're hearing. And then once those draft strategies have been reviewed by the steering committee, we'll revise them and then have an opportunity for the steering committee to select which ones are going to be included in the SERP. So this timeline that's being represented on this slide is anywhere from like starting in December through at least spring of 2024. Just open, and I'm leaving that open-ended because I know there's a lot of work ahead of us. So I'm going to take a pause. I do see Mr. Charles, your hand is up, and I also wanted to offer any others who might have questions about anything I shared to make sure we have time for that.
Mine is quick, and it's something that I brought up in the co-leads meeting, is that it says that the co-leads, which would be BACMed and CBE, would be developing the strategies and then bringing it back to the steering committee. And as a co-chair, I believe that it is all 3 co-chairs' responsibility to be in the strategy development part of this, and not after the strategies have already been picked and chosen. As community members, it's our responsibility to speak up from our side, and it'd be hard for us to do that if we're not in the room. And so on that second part about the drafting of strategies, co-chairs should most definitely be a part of that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Charles, and 100% hear you on that, and also and agree with that, and also should clarify with that bullet point. I'm really just referring to like the behind the scenes work of starting to gather the information, gather the agencies, like just doing a lot of that legwork and getting those strategies, potential strategies together. And we'll definitely be bringing those strategies to the steering committee, to the co-chairs. There is a lot of involvement. This is a huge shift into strategy development where we'll have a lot of involvement and feedback, and we'll be interested in hearing from everybody on this call about their perspectives on what we bring, what we haven't brought yet. So yeah, absolutely. And I see Allison.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Just wanted to add that we, at our next meeting, will provide more information about the process, but just +1, the full steering committee will be engaged in strategy selection and development. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that staff will be doing, but absolutely everybody will be involved, and that's really important. Thanks.
Thanks, Allison. It looks like we have a few more minutes. I've got one more slide that's a question prompt. If there are no other questions, just based on the slide I have pulled up, I think we can move on to the next and last slide before EJ announcements. All right, thanks for this. Yeah, so, this is a very open-ended question, but I did want to make as much use of our time as we could to just check in and see if there's anything else that you as a member feel you need in order to move to the next phase. So here we've been doing a lot of information gathering, and we're getting ready to start identifying these like major themes that we would hope to pursue for strategies. Is there anything that you feel you need in order to be prepared moving forward into strategy to reflect on that? And if you feel like coming off of mute and sharing or sharing anything in the chat, I'd love to take a couple of moments to hear from that.
I can share. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is that, yeah, we have a lot of the information, but putting it in maybe like an infographic, like a nice infographic that could be posted on social media and also just circulated. So one, it's like easy to see, it has graphics on it, and everything is just kind of like in maybe a one pager. So we're not having to look back at like all the presentations. So yeah, that would be my thing.
Thanks, Megillah. That's an awesome idea, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I see Andrea, your hand is up.
Yeah, I think just to back up what she's saying, I hope that public awareness and outreach is a part of the strategy, and maybe even creating a separate like outreach committee just to make sure that we have a strong social media presence and presence on the ground in East Oakland. I think that's going to be important.
Thank you for that. I see two more hands up, and then I think once we get through those two, we may need to pass on to the EJ announcements. So Marina.
Yes, I would like to mention as well that we do need to do like commercials or advertising, like English, Spanish, so people that can identify what we're doing, and also on the radio in Spanish and English, and actually in our newspapers as well. I know that we've done it. I know that the social media is occurring, but I would also like to have all that information in these other places so they know what we're doing, and also to have like a committee that's prepared to do that work, and have the graphics, have our graphs, so where we're going to start, what are the most worrisome strategies, and number them so we can put all this in process. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Marina. And thank you also, Jamie and Cynthia. I see your hands are raised. I apologize. We do have to move on in order to end at our 8 p.m. time, but I wanted to invite you to, if you don't mind, perhaps leaving your comment in the chat. Your feedback is very much appreciated, and I do also appreciate those of you who are coming off of mute and sharing. And with that, I will pass it on to our next folks who will be doing the EJ announcements. And thank you again for that feedback.
Hi, yes, if someone could share the EJ announcement presentation, please, that would be lovely. Also, there's only one EJ announcement and update really, so if Carissa, I think you're still sharing, if you don't mind sharing the flyer I have made for CSC recruitment, youth recruitment. And that's just an announcement to everyone. I made this flyer with help of our communications associate, and just wanted to announce that there are 2 youth vacancies right now on the CSC. So that means anyone who is 24 years of age or younger, if you know anyone who might be interested in speaking up about air pollution in East Oakland, definitely hand this flyer out to them. I will email this to each CSC member, and it has, the QR code there, so people can just, use that to apply. I believe the applications are in Spanish, Arabic. I am not sure what else, sorry, but it is on the site. So just wanted to let you all know that. And the deadline for applying is November 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. Thanks, everyone. Ayana, do you want to close us out?
I'll take that up for my co-chair. So we want to thank everybody for showing up. Please give feedback on our meeting, that we pass out surveys. Please make sure you fill out your surveys so we know how good we doing or how bad we're doing. And if we're doing bad, we'll make it better. And so thank you everybody for showing up. Our next meeting will be Thursday, December 14th, right before Christmas. So if people want to exchange gifts, let us know.
Absolutely.
Yep, $20 limit, $20 limit, nothing over 20.
We can have an ugly sweater fest, all of those things. But thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. And happy holidays, and we'll see you next month.
Yes, happy holidays to everybody. Enjoy your time with your family.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Great
care.
meeting, everybody.
Bye-bye. Happy
you.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Gracias a todos.
Thanks to everyone. And thanks to the interpreters.
Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, Awesome.
Yeah.
Is my team
Luego.
okay? I'm just letting you know.